Hey babes, my name's Hannah.
And my name's Chasity.
Welcome back to Bookish Babes. Today we are finally getting around to doing our book babble on Reminders of Him by Colleen Hoover, which is her newest release. If you haven't read it, definitely read it and then come back and watch this video because it's going to be very spoiler filled. We're going through every plot point, every character, all of our opinions. Spoiler alert, we both rated it 5 stars, both loved it.
Yes, so this would be your time to turn away if you have not read it
100%.
because it's going to be spoilery and this is one you definitely want to experience.
Yeah,
going
great.
into it. It's really, really good.
It's one of those, like, once I picked it up, once I really picked it up, I couldn't put it down.
Yeah, I was really glad that I actually went into it pretty blind. Yeah. I don't even think I read the synopsis.
And even with the synopsis, it doesn't really tell you so much about what the story is.
I usually don't. With like her.
Yeah.
With her, Taryn, I am.
Yeah. You feel like I'll come along for the ride. But if you have read it and you kind of just need a refresher, it's about Kenna who gets released from prison and goes back to her town where her daughter is to kind of try to reconnect, and is met with all these roadblocks in the way because of obvious reasons. I just love this one so much.
I did too. I was kind of just glancing at your notes and I see that we have kind of the same things on our notes, which is kind of funny. This was a story that, like, there's no real bad guys.
Yeah.
It's very difficult. It's a very heart-wrenching story. Everyone in this book is really just struck with grief. It's heart-wrenching.
And everybody is very justified.
Everyone is justified. Everyone is hurting.
Yeah.
For very good reasons. It's God, it's just, and it's real. Like,
I think one of the hardest things for me to read was when they were Kenna was like kind of going over what it was like to give birth while being in the prison system, especially to give birth to a baby that was early, and she literally didn't even get to hold her. She didn't even get to hold her own baby. But then you can't even really demonize Scotty's parents because of what they perceived to have happened, and they were never corrected on that. No. So of course they thought that's what happened. Because she didn't seem to show any remorse in court, and she never corrected them.
Pretty much everyone thinks they know the situation from their own perspective, which is usually what, we go off of. You see a situation and you can only take away from it your perspective. And unfortunately, most situations, there's a lot of gray area. There's not any kind of black or white. There's a lot of gray area. There's really two sides to every story. And
I feel like even though we were hearing the whole story from Kenna's point of view, or I guess like we did get some ledger chapters, but I still wasn't angry with Scotty's parents for what they were doing.
No.
I got it, because you think that she killed your son, went home and went to sleep.
Yeah.
And didn't call anybody, didn't ask for help, didn't show any remorse in court. Like, of course you wouldn't want your grandchild around her. You think she's a psychopath.
Yeah, and of course you'd like.
And of course, initially Ledger thought that the same thing. Because
what else could you think?
Right.
What else would you?
She killed his best friend. That was just it was all so crazy to me, and it all made me really respect Ledger and Scotty's parents a lot in the end, because even once they knew the whole story, I still feel like selfishly I wouldn't be able to get over that like they did. Like, she still definitely was drunk and she killed Scotty, and she was very much in shock and she was very much traumatized from what she saw. And so I think it took really big people to forgive her the way that they did.
Yeah, for sure. But I think also they did have to sit there and think about it, like what he would have wanted as well.
Yes.
And that was something that I really loved that they took into account of, like, Ledger for sure.
Yes.
Ledger for sure was like, am I letting him down?
Yes. Yes. He mentioned that so many times. He's like, those were, Scotty loved her, and
this was the woman her daughter. Yeah. That he loved.
I really loved that they all had different opinions and feelings towards each other. They were all so connected by their grief over Scotty and their love for Dan that at the end of the day, that's like what got them together. I thought that was really, really cool.
Yeah.
It was very emotionally driven. The story was really hard to read. There were moments where it's been a long time since I've actually physically cried while reading a book, and I definitely cried while I was reading this.
Yeah.
It was
I did too.
difficult to get through, not because it was written poorly, but because it was just like you were really, the emotions were portrayed so well through the writing that sometimes I was like, ooh, I kind of feel like I need a break for a second.
It was definitely tugs at the heartstrings, for sure. It really just makes you think about all, like, an impossible situation. Just an impossible situation. And
she was a kid. You know, they were both kids when this happened.
Yeah, and how one mistake just turned into such a tragedy. And then she was ready to just, and that was the thing, is she didn't know she was pregnant at the time.
Right. Otherwise, I think she said she
would have fought more.
Yeah.
And she would have spoke up in court and said something to try to not end up where she was. But she did not want to live after.
Right. She had nobody. I mean, her
mom
and her had a really complicated relationship.
And she felt she killed him too.
Which, I mean, she technically did, but she was a child who made a really poor decision.
Yeah.
And those were the consequences, unfortunately.
She did not want to live.
No, and then she found out she had a daughter to live for. That was really painful to go through.
That was so painful to go through, especially, you know, when she was talking about all the other women that were in the prison and how they had told her, like, you'll get, what was it, two days or however long?
It was 48 hours, but then she didn't, since Diane was born early, she didn't even get that.
She didn't get that. So she was looking forward to having those at least 2 days with the baby, and then she didn't even get that.
And they didn't even, like, I don't know how true this is for the prison system, but it sounds about right. Like, they wouldn't let her pump, so, like, she got really engorged with, like, milk after she gave birth, and she really just wasn't well taken care of. I mean, I get that they're felons, but still, it's like, it was hard to read.
That's, like, human decency.
Yeah.
I also thought Diem was an interesting character, an interesting little child.
Yes.
I always find it interesting to read the children in books, because children are such interesting characters in books.
Because they understand everything at, like, a surface level.
Right.
They told her, like, that's your mom, and she was like, okay, that's my mom. But, like, she didn't fully, like, she wasn't processing it. I thought it was cute.
Yeah, and she just came up with all these little stories, and she just had such a cute little personality. And it just, you know, and she wanted to try all these different hobbies.
I love that tidbit about her, is that she wants to try everything, but then she doesn't want to stick with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was a cute little kid.
Yeah, and she had such a good imagination.
Yeah.
She was a cute kid.
And I love the dynamic between her and Ledger.
Yeah.
How he kind of took on that role that Scotty would have had.
And most people would not.
No.
Most people would not.
Especially not at that, like, men at that age. Most wouldn't take that kind of responsibility of a child on, but he did.
I loved that.
I know.
Like he made sure that he was home in the morning before she got up.
I know, because she would look out and see his truck.
And she would get upset if he wasn't home in the morning. That was cute.
I also love books that are told in unique ways, and I love that part of the story was told via letters to Scotty.
Yes. The letters to Scotty were...
I don't think it would have hit the same way if it was just like, this is what happened. Instead, she was, like, writing to Scotty about it. That was what was cool to me.
Yes.
And how Ledger really learned what happened by reading one of the letters that she wrote.
That was so impactful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it was her, like, you could really feel her guilt. It was her, like, writing and being like, I'm so sorry that I didn't...
It was so much more honest, because she was writing it in a different state of mind.
Yeah.
Where she could be completely open and honest to Scotty.
Because she didn't think anybody was ever going to read it.
Right, exactly. So if it was in a different setting where she was just telling Ledger, I think it would have been different. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was much more impactful. Which is another reason why I think it worked so well when he gave it to Scotty's parents.
Right. Because they know that she's not... There's things that you don't do, and she would have never like written a letter to her dead boyfriend and lied. You know what I mean? Like that's just not something that humans think to do.
Right.
Most, I guess I should say. But that you're right. It was. I don't think that she could have ever sat down with them and said, "This is what really happened," and it wouldn't have hit the same for them.
Right.
And I love that too. That dynamic between, in the end, Scotty's mom and her. And how like initially she didn't feel like, you know, when Scotty was still alive and they were dating, like they didn't really like her. She felt very out of place there.
How interesting was it that like the few things that Grace really didn't like turned out to be Scotty? Like the cigarette?
Yeah.
Wasn't even Kenna's?
No.
How interesting was that?
Yeah.
I was like,
oh. And the pigeon parts?
The pigeon. I can't even. Is that a fucking pigeon?
When I first read that story.
That's the most ridiculous
I know. Like who, only Colleen would think of something like that to put in a story.
Only Colleen. Just like the butterfly eel. Like.
And freaking Lady Diana, I loved her.
Lady Diana was she was such an underrated character.
I know, and how much she hated Ledger was
Jerk.
So funny.
Every time.
Because she's, once again, it's just like thinking of, considering things on a very surface level, and it was so funny because there's so many things going on behind the scenes that she has no idea, and she's just like, "You're a jerk. I don't like you."
Yeah.
That's so cute.
Are you leaving with the jerk?
And the cat. That was something I instantly loved. It's like how she showed up to get her apartment keys, and then they're like, "You can only stay if you take one of these kittens."
Yeah.
Because I have too many. She's like, "I don't want a fucking cat. I don't even have custody of my child."
She's like, "Well, I'll keep your electricity on for a month if you take this cat."
She had so many kittens.
Take this damn cat. Okay.
There were just so many things about it that I loved.
I know. It was a really, really good story.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing was that how much support Kenna had in like the weirdest places. You know, when she was talking about the friend that she met in prison who helped her through the grief of losing her daughter. And then there was Lady Diana and the cat once she got out, and Ledger, and then the friends that she worked with at Ledger's bar. And,
yeah.
Yeah. And the initial meeting between her and Ledger.
It's so interesting.
That threw me off. Because I wasn't expecting that, like, his best friend wouldn't even know what she looked like. Granted, like, I guess she looks different now.
True.
Because she had to grow out, like, her natural hair color or whatever. But, and then once he said his name, and, like, I kind of knew then, even before it was explained, I was like, oh, he's connected to Scotty somehow. Because of how she reacted.
Yeah, that was, yeah. It was trippy.
It was a lot. I had a lot of thoughts once I finished. I was just like, I don't even know how to process all of these.
I know. It was a whole lot.
Oh my god, this scene at the grocery store where she sees DM and her grandma.
Oh,
and she tries to like run. Oh my god.
That broke my heart.
I was so sad. But then once again, like I was sad for Kenna, but I wasn't even angry with DM's grandma for doing that. Because she's a child, you know, you can't just... I got both sides. I did,
That was the hardest part about this book, because you got both sides in every situation.
I understood Kenna's, like, desperation to, like, she's, like, so close to her daughter for the first time, and she just wants to see what she looks like. But then I also understood her being like, I have to protect my granddaughter, and she doesn't know who this woman is, and I don't intend for her to know who this woman is, so I don't want to confuse her.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, there was never any, like, clear, like... This person's wrong. We need to do. It was like I don't know what to do.
The thing is, like, you can't root for everybody because they all have different intentions.
It was just like, can y'all figure it out for me, please?
Figure it out, please.
You're stressing me out.
So sad.
That was like that was the hardest part about this book, but also what made it so great is because it was such a difficult situation and such a tense situation, but literally everyone involved just wanted what was best for DM.
Yeah, like she even said she would leave town at one point.
Yeah, she said, like, she was prepared. That's why she was working at the bar.
Yeah, she was just gonna leave and like let her have a good life, because Ledger said, like, who does this benefit?
Right.
Does this benefit DM or does this benefit you? Because she has all the love.
Well, then it got to the point where she finally was just like, okay, I need the money.
Yeah.
And he left her the money too, and she was gonna go.
Yeah. And everything happened.
And then he was like, she can't go. And it was just such a crazy ride. Like, it was good.
It was so cute. I love all of the interactions between Ledger and DM. Like, I was reading this one where she's like, I want to go to work to you. Or, I want to go to work with you. And he's like, kids can't go to a bar.
Doesn't she say something about I go there sometimes?
Yeah. And then you can come work for me when you turn 18. That's a long, long time away. You'll be dead. Because I love how kids like don't really get things. Like that seems like a long time, and he seems so much older than her. So of course she'd be like, "You'll be dead when I'm 18," but he won't. Unless like something happens.
You'll be dead.
Yeah.
That's a long time away.
You know, it's a whole 13 years. You'll be dead by then.
A whole 13.
Yeah, because she's like 5 or something, right?
Yeah, you'll be dead.
Yeah.
Alrighty, so that's what we have for you today. Thanks for joining us. Comment down below if you have read this one and let us know your thoughts. And hit that like button and subscribe, and make sure you tap that notification bell so you know when we post next. We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye. Yeah, cool.
Okay, wait a minute. When was the last time I was able to do an outro?
I know,
in
right?
one take?
Dang. I'm a little nervous about this next one.